So for its mighty lump in the back.
The MCs, the Maserati MC12s, a trio of them, and they were stymied in the day because they fell outside of regulations. Maserati built them as a road-stroke race car, and beautiful piece of engineering, no doubt about it. They took the regulations, and it wasn't as if they drove a hole through them. They actually detoured around them at great speed. However, I did see one race in the States, in IMSA. I particularly remember a damp and drying race, I think at Lime Rock Park up in Connecticut when they were there. They were allowed to come across and race, but they weren't racing for points. They were effectively an invitational entry, and which was unheard of, to be honest. It was quite remarkable. But Maserati, I don't know how they got themselves into that position. And actually, there's a good book, or certainly a good long article about how they got themselves into that position. To be honest, it was quite remarkable. But Maserati, I don't know how they got themselves into that position. And actually, there's probably
there's a Spa 24 Hours many years running, and we've got one of the Vitaphone liveried cars that Michael Bartels was the sort of linchpin of that. Andrea Bertolini as well. Now, a car you definitely need to look forward to is this one. It's white and blue. It's a Zytek, and Alfie Briggs, very, very quick young driver. We'll look to see what he did. But Zytek, you think of them, you think of engines, but of course they ran a team at the time as well.
There's the Gemlin Synergy bright yellow number 39 pulling to the front of the field, or towards the front of the field.
In fact, on our flight on the way over, one of the three drives of that from period, Bob Berridge was on our plane, wasn't he? Gareth Owen.
1C, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it's busy down on the grid. We mentioned Alfie Briggs, and Vincent Poisson has sprung into position, and here he is.
That's the first grid walk of the weekend here on the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps with those cars of the Endurance Racing Legend 1 and this front row for this Zytek. Alfie Briggs, he's the young driver of this car. Alfie, how was it during the qualification? It was a big battle for pole position.
Yeah, I mean, Christian did a really good job. The Audi's obviously a really good car, but nothing could give it to the Zytek. It's a beautiful car, and Spa's a great track.
Spa is a great track, and I think that Spa for this Zytek is a very suitable track.
Yeah, I mean, it's high speed, so you need loads of downforce, and the Zytek suits it perfectly. So, no, it's going to be a good fun race. Obviously, I've got a pro driver penalty, which will make it a bit harder for me, but I can do my best.
Of course. On the front row, we have a Panos Roadster. It's a totally different car.
Yeah, I mean, front engined, lots of power. So he'll be good on the straights. But yeah, I'll do my best and see what we can do.
Alfie, last question. Do you know the story of your cars? Do you know the names of the drivers who drove this car?
Honestly, I haven't got a clue. No idea. So this is chassis 4. So this exact car never actually raced. So this was their test chassis. But I think Jamie Campbell-Walton might have drove it.
Great. Just like the other one, the DBA. Thank you very much, Alfie. Have a good race. Et François, mon cadreur, s'il peut me suivre, effectivement, on va aller sur ce grid walk trouver Olivier Galland, qui est également avec cette Panos juste extraordinaire sur cette grille de départ. Regardez cet engin qui a marqué l'histoire de l'endurance, forcément. Alors, on va s'immiscer dans la discussion d'Olivier. On est en direct, Olivier. Olivier Galland, voilà la première ligne ici pour cette épreuve de l'Endurance Racing Legends avec cette monstrueuse Panos. Ça va?
Ouais. Ça va bien. Jusqu'ici, tout va bien.
Voiture, ça se pilote comment? Quand on voit la Zytek juste à côté de vous, on se dit qu'on est quand même avec deux mondes différents là.
Ouais, très différents. Déjà, c'était une voiture qui était assez particulière à l'époque. La Zytek est plus moderne. J'ai un moteur bien plus gros, donc je devrais avoir un avantage en ligne droite. Et sa voiture est plus légère, donc elle devrait être plus agile, surtout dans le deuxième secteur. Mais on verra. Ce qui est bien, c'est qu'avec une voiture rapide, peut-être qu'en qualif c'est moins rapide, mais c'est bien pour la course parce que ça me donne une opportunité de le passer dans la ligne droite. Donc si j'arrive à passer, peut-être que je peux le garder derrière. S'il reste devant, ce sera compliqué.
Conditions absolument parfaites, Olivier, ici sous le soleil, ça vous arrange?
Ça, je sais pas. En tout cas, c'est plus sympa. Pour le week-end, on a amené, on a amené des chapeaux et des lunettes de soleil. D'habitude, c'est parapluie, donc c'est quand même magnifique avec ce temps. Ouais.
There will be a great battle between this Zytek and these Panos during this first race of the weekend for the Endurance Racing Legends.
Vincent, thank you very much. And the prize for the best hat of the day definitely goes to Olivier Gallon. For someone who lives in the Middle East, he obviously knows to keep the sun off his head. But yeah, it's going to be a real scrap. As he pointed out, more grunt from his Panos, but the smaller, lighter, well, probably equal dimension, but lighter, more streamlined Zytek alongside will have its advantages elsewhere. But Olivier is a very, very quick driver in ancient and modern. Tucked in behind, John, car number 25, Mike Newton, still with his MG EX264 from 21 years ago. It's never been out of his hands, still looks as fresh as when it was new.
And still being run by fabulous Phil Barker, ex of Ray Mallock Limited. And Phil used to have the office next door to me. And if ever I wasn't sure about anything, which was quite a lot, to be brutally frank, I'd pop next door for a cup of coffee and a chat with Phil. Phil has had experience all the way up to Formula One, really found a good spot for himself at RML, running a number of different cars and programs, and actually all the way up to the ASCAR. We won the championship for Ray Mallock Limited with the ASCAR when that came over to the UK and ran at Rockingham Motor Speedway, which was just up the road. One of Britain's foremost teams of the time. Privateer.
And have gone from engineering excellence to excellence ever since. And by the way, that car won its class, the P2 class, in 2005 and 2006 at Le Mans.
Should have won in 2007 as well, actually. But amazingly, Andy Wallace, who had been drafted in to bolster the team, and he was the change, he made the mistake. And that was what cost them the 3 years running.
That was one of the jaw-dropping moments. You don't associate the pair. I mean, Tommy Erdos and Warren Hughes the first year, and then Hughesy was replaced by Wallace the second year. But anyhow, it looks as though we're going towards an Emil Breitmeyer interview, but down with the DBA that's due to be starting. So, Vincent is all set to interview about the DB03S. Vincent.
With Emil Breitmeyer here at the start of this race with this DBA 03S. We'll do the interview in French avec Emil Breitmeyer. Alors d'abord, je tiens quand même à préciser que c'est notre tout frais vainqueur du Tour Auto qu'on a à côté de cette DBA. Bon, Emil, entre la Ford GT40 du Tour Auto et cette DBA 03S, il y a comme qui dirait un petit monde de différence.
Oui, clairement, ça n'a rien à voir. Et là, on est sur une voiture qui est vraiment performante ici. Et j'ai pas beaucoup d'expérience avec. Aux qualifications, c'est la première fois que je roulais avec. Donc je suis déjà assez content de ma position sur la grille. Mais là, en course, ça va être une autre histoire. On a moins le temps, donc il va falloir attaquer de suite. Donc on va voir ce que ça donne. Mais c'est une voiture vraiment phénoménale, incroyable, légère. À rouler, c'est juste dingue. Donc très content d'être ici avec cette voiture. Et on va essayer de faire une belle course. On va voir ce que ça donne.
Alors la Zytek a un nom différent, mais c'est assez similaire à votre voiture. Hein. Celle-là, une 04S, DBA 03S, c'est en gros les mêmes voitures. Alfie Bricks, ça constitue une petite donnée pour vous, une donnée tampon. On regarde un peu les chronos qu'il fait pour voir ce à quoi on peut aboutir.
Oui, sûrement, mais après, moi, c'est vraiment là, les premières courses. Donc déjà, le but, c'est de bien finir et de faire tous les tours. Et après, les voitures sont un peu différentes, il faudra qu'on regarde, mais je pense que déjà, globalement, garder ma position, ce serait déjà sympa et réussir à faire toute la course bien comme il faut. Mais c'est sûr que ces voitures-là ont un potentiel de dingue et on a déjà l'impression de rouler très très vite, mais ça peut aller très 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 vite.
Merci Emile. Emil Breitmeyer with this DBA. It will be his first race with the DBA. We know that in Barcelona there were some technical problems. He wasn't at the start of the race. He will have a lack of experience with this car, of course, but he hoped to be not so far away from the Zytek, same cars, of course.
Vincent, thank you very much indeed. And I love the description about quick and then quick. And that's what he means, stepping up to a prototype. And just last week, as Vincent intimated at the start of the interview, he won the Tour Auto, that fabulous event around France, John, where you go from circuit to circuit. And he was in a Ford GT40. But Emil Breitmeyer, winner. I mean, his trophy cabinet is going to have to be extendable on an enormous scale because certainly Bright Racing prepares some astonishing cars. But he's in that lucky position to be able to shift from machine to machine, from decade to decade. Some people try it, and not everybody can have a handle on the really, really different machinery they get their hands on as they move through. But Emil, such a bright star of the Le Mans series, the Le Mans Classic series, and again, another new experience. But the fact he qualified third shows he's very much got a handle on that DBA. The top 3 cars are all in the LMP1 class, so you would expect them to be at the front of the grid. There's another one in class, but that's down in 13th, Xavier Micheron's Courage. But then you get the LMP2. We've seen Mike Newton, he's heading that class. But then 5th on the grid, we've got the fastest of the GT1 qualifiers. So those are the cars with roofs. It's the Maserati MC12. Joe Macari, he's already had one race today, but it was very short, so we'd be fairly sure he's going to try undertone. What else is on the grid? We've got the Lotus Elise down there. That ran in the GT1 class, 1997.
That's an interesting car, isn't it? Because it never really... That's an interesting car, isn't it? Because that never really, I felt, got the backing it deserved. It was the Hesemans team, of course, that ran it. There was a... How can I describe it?
I'll have a tilt. There was never sufficient money going. I think a lot of people wanted to be the works team for Lotus, but
Correct.
Lotus didn't really have the money, and they weren't the only ones that tried. That was racing in 1997. I remember seeing that on the Helsinki street circuit, which was all walls. Bear in mind, they had a Formula 3000 race as well. But anyhow, so it's a car I'm sure we're going to discover some history about. The Lotus Elise GT1 from 1997. Bright yellow. And Vincent is going to have a little word with the team manager who's running the Elise. Let's hope it's going very well.
On the start grid with this Lotus Elise GT1 car number 43. But these guys interest me, particularly Mr. Tuan Hesemans, former winner of the 24 Hours of Spa on the big circuit of Spa-Francorchamps, the old circuit. Tuan, when you see all this historic meeting, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, it's fantastic to look. Of course, it's now a completely different track, which is a lot safer. By the time in 1973, when we won, oh my God, goodness, you're driving through the villages, the trees and everything. Very dangerous. Now it's very nice.
Very dangerous, but you did it at the time. It was the only way of driving, of racing.
Yes, it was the only way of driving. Actually, during the night, somebody crashed very heavily. And they just come with the ziekenwagen, how you call it, the ambulance, in the middle of the street. One guy waves the drapeau, a flag, and then, you have to drive slowly around it. It was crazy.
Crazy, of course. Let's speak about this Lotus, Tuan. What are the chances of this car for winning the race here today?
Overall, we can't win. The class he can win, but he was naughty yesterday, overtaking by yellow, so they put him 4 places back. And normally the car can be on the podium.
We'll see that this Lotus Elise GT1 with Loris and Liam Hesemans, part of the Hesemans family.
This car was driven by Jan Lammers and Mike Hesemans on the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1997.
Exactly, Le Mans in 1997 with Mike Hesemans, his son.
Thank you. Always great to hear from Toyn, the patriarch, now the 3rd generation beneath him. Toyn was a superstar of the 70s, and certainly a lot of people who raced against him in period on occasion went, he was quick. He could have gone other places. He was, an absolute linchpin of Dutch racing too. But great to see the Lotus out, and it's great to see cars that, one of the roles of historic racing, John, is to find cars you didn't expect ever to see again, and to find them performing as well, even if Loris, that's 3rd generation Hesemans, was a naughty boy, as his grandfather described.
I like that. Making no excuses, I noticed either.
Well, if you've been around the block enough times, they don't wash excuses, do they?
Indeed not. Yeah, interesting to see that bright yellow car back on the grid. Sits right behind that Chamberlain Synergy car. Another fairly luminous livery for the Chamberlain Synergy machine. The grandstand's steadily filling up this Saturday, and long afternoon into the evening to come, and we have it all live for you. Then we'll kick it off again tomorrow morning, just before or just at 9 o'clock local time, running through to late afternoon. If you're within a decent drive of Spa, I would thoroughly recommend that you jump on or in your transport and get yourself down here, because the weather forecast for tomorrow is absolutely quality. And we'll do it all again with everything you'll see today. And in fact, there's 3 classes, I think, that we don't see today, that we only see tomorrow, which a couple of which are going to be absolute crackers. Just coming down through the grid and seeing the cars that I remember in period, the dark green of the Aston Martin DBS, and that car, DBR 9S should I say, sitting in front of some of the open-topped prototypes. I know why we don't have open-top prototypes anymore, but I did like the elegance of those cars. Let's head back down to the pit lane as Vincent has found another interview with the number 8 car.
On the start grid with this Aston Martin Vantage number 008, and we found the Belgian driver, so we'll make the interview in French, of course. Nico Verdonck, même s'il est néerlandophone. Nico Verdonck, Aston Martin, superbe Aston Martin dans ce plateau Endurance Racing Legends 1. Comment ça se passe jusqu'à présent?
Honnêtement, c'est magnifique d'être là sur la grille avec Gregor, grâce à lui qui m'a demandé de lui soutenir. Mais c'est une voiture magnifique. Jusqu'à hier matin, je n'avais pas encore eu l'occasion de rouler la voiture, mais je connais ce type de voiture de l'époque avec la GT1, quand je roulais en 2011 sur la Corvette et la MC12. Mais ici, c'est une des voitures, la crème, alors c'est magnifique.
Magnifique. On exploite ça comment, Nico? On roule quoi à 80, 90%, 95% du potentiel de la voiture?
Tout d'abord, c'est pas ici que je vais avoir un nouveau contrat. C'est pas comme dans le passé, mais même tu veux t'amuser, mais pour t'amuser, il faut quand même utiliser ces voitures parce qu'il y a un minimum de performance qu'il faut avoir pour que ça fonctionne bien. Mais c'est sûr que on roule pas au dernier dixième. Mais je me suis quand même très bien éclaté hier en qualif. Quand on tourne avec cette voiture de 17, on sait que ça avance bien.
Alors on sait que la victoire en GT, ça va probablement se jouer entre cette Lotus Elise du clan Heisemans et votre Aston Martin. Grosse bagarre là.
Ouais, on fera tout pour avancer. Ouais.
Nico Verdonck, driver of this Aston Martin. He want to win. There will be a fierce battle with the Lotus in the GT1 category.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Yeah, lots of praise from Nico Verdonck there. You know, for a lot of drivers, they're finally given a chance in the car. They would have imagined when they were growing up, what the performance is like. The reality, John, is always something that takes them by surprise, for better or for worse. But you are finally experiencing something that you've only ever imagined before. But Nico will not be starting. He's wafting the door to try and get a bit of air onto Gregor Fiskin, a Scottish racer who will be kicking off that race in the Aston.
I remember being given a passenger ride in the Le Mans winning car, which would have been in 2005, maybe 2004. We were on a promotional tour in the UAE. The Intercontinental Hotel Group were one of the big sponsors of Aston Martin. And we were taking the Le Mans winning car around. And sitting in the passenger seat of that car, it wasn't how fast it went, it was how quickly it stopped that was really amazing. I'd ridden motorbikes, I'd driven some pretty neat cars, and motorbikes obviously, but it was just how late. It was Ricard Rydell, I think, who was driving me around, and we were on a shortish version of the Dubai circuit. My goodness me, it was absolutely fantastic. Right, the 996, Marcus Paltala and Chris Harris's car.
Back on the start grid with this car from the old good times, and the guy at the wheel, Mr. Marcus Paltala, this Finnish driver, and the guy here, Christian Schumacher, is the former responsible of PSI and not always responsible for PSI, the guy who tuned this Porsche 996 biturbo. Christian, it's a particular Porsche, this.
Yeah, it's a biturbo one, so this means in 2000 I take the decision to go for a biturbo car just to get a chance to fight against the Vipers and the Maseratis and whatever was at this moment on the grid. Porsche, as everybody knows, always only interested in atmospheric engines. So we took it over, made by ourselves in-house, let's say, with the FIA in Geneva, the whole homologation part of the car, and afterwards built up to 2006, 11 cars in total.
What was the result for this car? You were satisfied with the performances of the car?
It is a biturbo engine which is quite emergent about restrictors. So I remember in 2001, the first season, that even Peter Bart was, Jürgen Bart was intervening that this car should receive bigger air restrictors to get any kind of chance against the V10s of America. This is somewhere, let's say, a lack of power that we got since the beginning, but at the end, if I remember right, the car was able to fight for 5th, 6th places in the FIA, which is, I would say, for a private team, something nice.
Thank you very much, Christian Schumacher. So 20 years later, the car is there on the start grid in Spa. Wonderful.
Great to see it back. Marcus Baltala behind the wheel. Not sure if Chris Harris is here this weekend, actually. His name's not on the car. It was on the original entry list.
It was still on yesterday's entry list, but I think the same happened. Well, certainly in the opening round in Barcelona, his name was down. He wasn't. I just want to say, we talk always about how friendly the historic racing scene is, but may I take my hat off, or other things? No, just my hat. Motor Historics. A knock on the studio door. What now? Are we about to be told off? But no, a tray with scones, with cream and strawberries, and some sandwiches wrapped up.
It's 4:45. It's high tea, Mr. Jones.
For me, that was only the approach to high tea. High tea came at about 6. 4 o'clock was tea time, but we'll get some tea later. But anyhow, it's a lovely nature, and it's great to see the people enjoying the grid walk down there ahead of the endurance racing legends. A chance to get up close to the car. And I love the fact that so many of the people who were involved with those teams in period, like Toyn Hazeman's looking over his son Mike's Lotus project, are still here, still able to bring the stories. And so many stories never really get into public distribution and circulation, just because often there are little secrets in the paddock. But it's really nice decades on when those tales can come out, not just to sort of join the dots for us after all these years, but for people who are looking at these for the first time to sort of understand not the chicanery, just the way that people were trying to find that extra bit of performance and to go to the front. And that moment where the fans on the grid walk are now starting to pull off the grid, and we'll get that wonderful shot. I always love this moment, particularly things like Spa 24 Hours, Nürburgring 24 Hours, when you finally get the cars on their own. You get a chance to see them.
They almost appear, don't they?
They do.
It's almost like an oasis appearing out of the heat haze of a desert scene. I always think when we go to Petit Le Mans at the end of the American Le Mans series that season, the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship as it is now, where there's it seems there's 25,000 people on the grid, and we're looking down on it, and we have this philosophical discussion between ourselves in the booth. If we can't see the cars and the track, does it actually still exist? And then the whistles are blown and everybody in an orderly fashion moves off, which in itself is incredible to watch. And then you see the competitors, then you see the gladiators, if you will, and it really sets the scene. And this view from down at La Source backwards to the start line has, even without Circuit du Spa-Francorchamps over the top, you would not have to tell very many people where that was.
No, exactly so. But also another moment you get right at the start of an event is when you finally get to see the cars, and you see suddenly someone who's got a problem with one of the cars. That's the start of a story. This is a 40-minute race. Driver changes. About half a dozen of the cars in this 20-plus car grid. I think we're getting 19 cars on the grid. A couple haven't quite made it through. We'll have a secondary driver. So the secondary drivers, we've heard from one of them. That's Nico Verdonk, who's sharing Gregor Fiskin's Aston Martin DBR9. Mark Rostan, who will be sharing a pill beam with Pierre Bruneau. Olivier Pla was a late addition, tip-top French sports car racer. He's sharing with Romain Beltes in a LMP2 Courage. Loris Hazeman, we've mentioned Mike, so Mike is the father, Loris the son. Jean-François Besson is sharing with Guillaume Guignard. That's in the little black Lindsay we saw just coming round as they were assembling on the grid. Pierre Bruneau will... What happens with Pierre Bruneau and Mark Rostan? One starts one pill beam, and the other one starts the other one. So there's a little bit of, let's say, lack of efficiency potentially in those pit driver changes. But actually, there's just about generous enough time for you to come in if you're nose to tail for both to be, not be hampered.
I did that once in with a driver in a race. Actually, no, that got me the drive in the race, because I was at Snetterton talking about a classic race, and the driver that I was saying, that's going to mess up their pit stops, because he was jumping out of one car into the other, and he got stuck on the wrong side of the old Snetterton and had to come back through the cornfield, basically. And he gave me a bit of a hard time, and next time out, I was sharing an RS31 Capri with him. So He basically said, "Can you drive as quick as you can talk?" I said, "I'll give it a go." "Oh, what a shame you haven't got a race licence." I said, "Mike, I've got a race licence." "Oh."
Yes, you have to be careful what you offer, when, and to whom. So, as people leave the grid, it's not often at Spa-Francorchamps you need umbrellas. Today they are parasols. Now, watch out for one of the cars from the very back of the grid. It's bright green and it's black, and it's a little LMP2 Lola MG, and we're expecting that to come charging forwards in the hands of Nell Stark. He's tucked in behind the bright, multicoloured Coroiser Marcos Mantara, and bringing up the rear is that Lindsay in 18th position, Georges Gagnard. Unless just outside the right-hand side of our shot, we've got Roman Beltest. We may have been reduced to 18. The Courage I cannot see as yet. But there is our grid. Open-top cars and closed-top GT1 runners. And we've heard from quite a few of the runners and riders down there on the grid. But basically it boils down to Alfie Briggs in the white and blue Flash, Zytek on pole position, and Olivier Gallon with that black-nosed front-engine Paynos. They're going around on their formation lap.
Problem for, I think that's the Paynos, the Marcos, that hasn't got fire in the engine.
Something with a very large rear wing that they're about to push on, but hopefully that at least can get started, albeit from the very back.
Oh no, it's a Porsche. It's a Porsche.
Oh, it's the Marcus Palsler car. I thought it was the one behind looking at that rear wing. Yes. So you're going to get both of those turbos singing, and I'm not entirely sure that Lindsay got underway either.
So this is the Pierre Martinet sponsored car.
Now, oh good, the Lindsay has got away, but unfortunately you mentioned earlier about climbing up to Les Combes. It is actually even a gentle climb up the start-finish straight to La Source, so it might need more than two people, because that 996 bi-turbo won't be as light as a feather, so it needs a little bit more of a push. Now look at the second place car came up towards us, the front engine Paynos, driver position offset as well, so it's a very strange car to see when you see it from the front end.
I remember talking to Jan Magnussen and David Brabham actually when those cars were racing. It is a front engine car, but the engine, which is an American V8, number of people had their hands on them, but originally it was Jack Roush's organisation who tuned it based on a Ford block, and that engine was pushed so far back in the car that ultimately the driver was pretty much, Bruce, sitting over the top of the rear axle. Now that's efficient in terms of getting a front engine car balanced to a near 50-50 weight ratio. But talking to all of the drivers, Johnny O'Connell drove that car as well, it was the most bizarre feeling for them, because they were so far back in the car that the polar moments of inertia when the car was sliding around, they were feeling in a completely different way to any other car that they'd ever driven, because they were sitting on that back axle.
They were following it. They should be on top of it. Yeah,
correct.
No, really, really weird. So, feast your eyes. If you like Maserati MC12s, we've got a trio of them. There's the third in the Vitaphone livery, the Aston Martin of Gregor Fiskin, and then a host of others tucked in behind. A couple of Courages, a couple of Pilbeams, that bright Marcos Mantara that is, orange, green, blue, and yellow. Coroiser is the number plate. I'm sure you'd have picked out that personalised
EU
vanity plate, but it looks as though, let's see, it does appear we haven't got Roman Beltest, unfortunately. The number 8 Courage, the C65, that doesn't appear to be a starter, so one down we are.
Yeah, but we have got a car of that ilk, haven't we? We've got the number 31 car, the Courage. Yes, that is in there.
Yeah, it does mean we've lost Olivier Pla, who was slated to be driving that. And Olivier, with all his successes at Le Mans, and in fact, many, many years of competing at Le Mans, not getting to start, unfortunately, for the Endurance Racing Legends 1, as we've already seen a race for the Endurance Racing Legends 2. That's for the GT2 runners.
The Martinet car, the Pierre Martinet car is running, the 996. It's coming back up through the field. Now, how far will it be able to get back up, and can it make its way back with Marcus Paltala into the inside of row 6? I think he's just about done that.
He's only a couple of places back when they get to Blanchimont, so he'll surely manage. But the front row, it's Alfie Briggs in the white and blue Zytek alongside Olivier Gallon in the Panos LMP1 Roadster, and who can hang with them? Emil Breitmeyer, very, very quick, doesn't know the DBA, that's the blue metallic liveried car, starting third. And Mike Newton, he does know his MG, it's the EX264, he's owned it and raced it ever since period, twice a Le Mans LMP2 winner. He's going to try and hang on. He won't have the same performance, but he's right in the mix. And you know what? Being cognizant, look at those 3 Maseratis, blue, red and aquamarine, all line astern on the right-hand side of the grid from the driver's point of view. So, going to be rolling thunder.
Wait for the flag. They'll let everybody get back into line. It's not a massive run down to the first corner, and then we'll wait for them to be released, still with the red light on. 40 minutes on the clock. Endurance racing legends, green light, and we are racing, and immediately Alfie Briggs in the white and blue number 150 Zytek O4S takes to the inside, protects the corner, and we'll just wait for a moment to see if everybody got through, but Alfie, got round the outside.
Who's coming into third? Loris Hazeman's from 8th on the grid in the yellow Lotus. A brilliant start. I tried to stay quiet as they went to the first corner. We joked with Toyn Hazeman, so can he win the race? Well, maybe he can win his class. Well, he's trying to win the race outright. It's a 40-minute race. Look at that little, well, it seems quite large, actually, the Lotus in comparison to the 2 cars ahead. But Olivier Gallon, good line.
He's up to second. He's up to second, even before the braking area there.
Turn the wick up on your engine, except it's not turbocharged. Well, my golly, but okay, right, expect Alfie Briggs to go, hold on a second, that should not be happening. He started on pole. Look at the massive aero under the back of that Zytek, you know, made for purpose. He's going to try and fight back into Bruxelles. No, he backs out. The Lotus.
Locking from the leader.
Excellent. Mike Newton's going to lose relative to the front runners. 2 of the 3 are LMP1 cars. He won't have their performance, but he'll be going, I should be able to be up with that little Lotus. That's from GT1. So Mike Newton in 4th place, the red, white and blue MG Lola will be getting his head down, seeing what he can do. But oh my word, we heard there was a mistake that cost Loris Hazeman's 4 places on the grid and running very wide at Pouhon, somehow finding some grip from, well, who knows where, stays in 2nd place.
Yeah, he went into the first part of Pouhon a little bit too quickly. Back end started to protest a little bit, but he's held on to that nicely. So difficult to pass in that part of the circuit, plunging downhill, but the additional aero of the prototype Zytek should be able to get up the inside. Not a race history on that car. Chassis number 4, chassis 2 and 3 very well known and passed around a few places. The Templar Avis of course is also the same car underneath, but was effectively renamed under license, wasn't it, Bruce? And they made a couple of, maybe 3 of the DBAs actually.
Yeah, it was the Reynard O2S project. Reynard,
correct.
For long, so strong in single-seaters, moved over to sports cars, didn't really work. Right, Alfie Briggs back into 2nd place. But we'll look at timing interval to our race leader, Olivier Gallon. Brilliant start from him in the Panos. He's going to be, 3-4 seconds clear? Over the start-finish line he goes, waiting for the 2nd place car, 3.2 seconds.
The
Lotus fights back. I have unfinished work.
Same place as it made up all the positions from the start, which is round the outside at La Source. Alfie Briggs is wise to it this time. But the Lotus, right in the wheel tracks, won't go through at the bottom of the hill over the bridge at Eau Rouge. Oh, and a much better run by Briggs through Eau Rouge and up to Radion. And I do think that Loris Hazeman's just had to lift off there. I think he was too much in the aero wash of that prototype ahead.
Fantastic battle between the two of the 3 Maseratis and the red Vodafone car with Kriton Lendoudis, the Greek shipping man. Well, made that look very easy going past Joe McCurry. Joe, who spun out earlier in the previous race, maybe just being a little bit cautious. But the third, the Maseratis, a little bit further back in the hands of Alexander Rittweger. But what we're seeing now was basically the high aero performance of the Zytek, just making it easy through Eau Rouge and Radion, and now he's made the break, and I fear the Lotus will lose the toe. It does seem to have plenty of grunt, but you have a sequence of faster corners and he's going to struggle. What's happening? Is the cavalry coming forward? Well, the cavalry appears to be the MC12, the red one of Kriton Lendoudis. Joe McCurry dropping back a little bit, the Lola challenging him. Peter Wolf in that bright yellow car, car number 39, getting close and close. And again, when you've got these 2 cars side by side in the background of the shot, when you get the faster corners, advantage to the open top sports car. They're more aerodynamic, they're faster. You look at the way the air is channeled underneath them, they're far, far more efficient. but you've got to choose your moments. So Peter Wolf is starting to wait for that, and in front of him, Joe McCurry getting a little bit tail happy in that blue Red Bull sponsored car.
Yeah, Joe drives that Maserati quite regularly and is very experienced in it. The little LMP2 675 car, of course, as it was, 675 referring to the minimum weight of the car, 675 kilos. The top class cars at that time were 900 kilos. Regs changed, but just a little 2-litre 4-cylinder AER turbo engine, rebranded as an MG for the works cars. Martin, Bahrain and Lola turning out a number of chassis around this time that could be used with a variety of engines. There were other engines in that chassis as well that raced around the world.
Yeah, I mean, in the history of sports car racing, there have been periods where everything is aligned, and periods when everyone's doing it differently. You know, you just have to go with that, and you need a chassis, particularly if your business model, as it was with Lola, is to sell. You know, they sold their 1,000th racing car. I think it was a Formula Ford car in 1975, and they were the most successful, racing car constructor in the world. Times changed though, but for them, customer cars were where it was at. And certainly for people like Peter Wolf, he's the beneficiary. He's fallen back a little bit in that challenge in the background of the shot.
But Lola are back
indeed
in the hands now of Till Bechtelsheimer, and they've got a new product, albeit one that looks like a Lola should do.
Yeah, it's there's a road and track day special. It's the T70S. It's an exquisite bit of kit. I mean, it's always been a beautiful body shape, but also they're running a works team in Formula E. They're going down very many avenues, not yet known to the public, to do with bringing forward technology. Racing is always driven by technology.
Correct.
So, the third of the Maserati MC12s. Alexander Rittweger running in 9th place overall, and the Scot behind him, Gregor Fiskin, really he had 3 appearances in the Le Mans 24 Hours. He sells cars. He also likes racing them, and he really races a huge range. There he is in the 008 Aston Martin, probing in that DBR9, looking to see, and a big tail slide there from Alexander Rittweger, who actually sort of did that on his own. Fiskin wasn't quite close enough to put him, but I guess when you're under that sort of pressure, now he most certainly is. And of course, when you go through Curve Paul Frey, you've got that long arc to the right-hand side, and there we are. That is someone absolutely catching a toe. Gregor Fiskin, but he's got to make it work.
Look at those two cars, though. The Aston Martin, you can clearly see, has its roots in a car that, whilst it wasn't series production, of course, Aston Martin is a bespoke manufacturer, but they were turning those cars out with the extruded aluminium monocoque and chassis spine part. That was the basis of their business model for their street cars, their road cars, for a very long time. And then the Maserati turns up with this carbon fibre chassis,
everything,
monocoque, everything, and basically threw the kitchen sink at it. Meantime, the battle for the lead, Bruce, is at the end of the Kemmel Straight, and the Panos that's been on its own for so long is now not, and Alfie Bree is right there in the Zytek 04S.
Yeah, previous lap he took 1.5 seconds out of the race leader. The gap, remember, was 2 and a bit seconds at the end of the opening lap. He got pushed back to 3rd place overall. The Lotus is history. It's the top of the shot on the right-hand side. Remember, that got between the 2 LMP2 cars. Loris Hazeman down to Bruxelles, but basically Alfie Briggs, I sort of felt, needed to bide his time and work out how to get past the Lotus. That he did. Okay, little bit of a mistake, but you've got to keep challenging. Still plenty of time left in this race, but he's trying to unseat Olivier Gallon, and their discretion was the better part of valour. Backed out at Les Combes, slotted back into 2nd place, but the ease with which he suddenly removed a 2-second lead, reduced, and then nearly moved ahead, means he can do it again. Alfie Briggs in the number 150 Zytek, and as John pointed out at the top of the show, this was a car that was a test car, never raced, and now a little bit of action at the back of the field. Number 20 Pilbeam, that's Pierre Bruno being challenged by the Xavier Micheron driven Courage, and again the best place to do passing, as long as you've got a good run through Eau Rouge and Radion, is the top end of the Kemmel Straight up at Les Combes, and that was an attempt, didn't quite work. And still, look, Alfie Briggs, 2nd place, right now on the tail of Olivier Gallon, certainly the quicker car in terms of combination around the track, but Olivier is showing a great deal of experience in his still relatively young racing career. He said, I've got the grunt, but what I don't have is the aerodynamic advantage. That definitely is the chasing car, the pole car, the white and blue Zytek of Alfie Briggs. So Alfie has got to play a game of chess. Right, where do I strike? I mean, if I was playing chess, I'd have lost my rook and a couple of the knights as well by now. But down past the endurance pits they go, and the advantage going up the straight in terms of power will be the race-leading Panos, but in terms of approach speed onto the Kebble Straight, it will definitely be a better run, and how much better from the chasing Zytek. He's gained the best part of a second in that swoop, and right now there is Olivier Gallon saying, oh, what I would give to drive your car, but I've still got grunt. So he's trying to fight back up to Lecombe. Doesn't quite work, but I seriously can't believe the pace of that Zytek. It handled beautifully through Eau Rouge, and then when the track snapped uphill to Radillon, just performance to spare.
So we're not even halfway through this, just gone through the first quarter of the race, 10 minutes down, and it's Zytek, Panos, Lotus, MG, Mike Newton leading his class. So all of those cars, in fact, Clinton Lendudis as well, all of the top 5 are class leaders, but never mind that, they're battling for outright honours here, and that Panos is not being dropped at the moment.
No, but I think it will be, because I think, when you're passing, you lose a little bit of time, but the performance of Alfie Briggs, I knew he was quick, I knew the car was quick. He has the handling performance on the quick corners absolutely in his pocket. Right, really, you talk about 5 cars in the 5 classes in the top 5 positions. What it really boils down to is 2 LMP1 cars, just the first and second in the race. They're in different classes because the one in second place is older, okay? Then we got a GT1 class car, that's in third, that's the Yellow Lotus. Then we got an LMP2. Effectively, it's 3 categories of racing and 2 subclasses. So maybe to keep it simple, we'll just refer to LMP1s, GT1s, and LMP2s. LMP2, just going out of our shot, that's Alfie Briggs going out of our shot. It's the 4th place car of Mike Newton. It's the one with the white with red and blue, the Lola-designed MG badged P2 car, Mike Newton in there. Further down the order, we've got the red car there is a Courage in behind, making decent ground is Xavier Michon in a blue Courage. And then just behind that was Pierre Bruno and Marcus Palser doing his best in his bi-turbo Porsche, but that didn't start well, and I'm not sure it's running really well, but a very, very complex car, in fact, that bi-turbo, famously so.
Yeah, that was the last of the turbocharged GT cars. Peterson White Lightning in the States were running those cars. Got a feeling, and Johnny Morland will be watching this, hello JMO if you are, I have a feeling that Johnny Morland in that era was one of the drivers that took the turbocharged 911 to its last international victory. It was a big change in what was going on. Porsche moving to normally aspirated flat 6 engines, which they still have in their GT cars, out to 4.18 something now, which came from the old GTE, GT1 days. And let me tell you, there is not another millimetre that you could get between those bores on the cylinders nowadays, but they're all normally aspirated based on that 4 litre, that venerable 4 litre flat 6 block. Still being used in Porsche Carrera Cup in 4 litre form, even though the bodywork has changed.
Here we have Mark Rostan and Pierre Bruno, or is it Pierre Bruno and Mark Rostan? Because these are 2 red pill beams, and they will hopefully be in neighbouring garages, because driver 1 goes from car 1 to car 2, or car 20 to the sister car number 99. Pierre Bruno is in the car that's leading their little group. That's the MP93, slightly squarer of nose, more chiselled nose, if you will, of the chasing MP91 from 2004. Mark has always been a tip-top driver, never got the brakes. In fact, he was a Peugeot development driver he was in Formula 3000, but an engineer as well as a racer. But they need to stay as close as they can to possible to just simply make their pit stop a little more useful.
There's been an issue for the second of those red cars, the number 99 Marc Rostin, because there's something flapping underneath and at the right rear of that car, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. The Lola MG, the Hot Wheels livery car, has caught them now, and that's a battle for 4th, 5th and 6th for LMP2B category. And we have the Internecine Maserati battle as well. Although it's not the battle of the phone companies, Vodafone versus Vitaphone, but it is the red and white Vodafone car ahead of the Red Bull livery car, and they are battling a little further up the field. That's 5th and 6th, and that is 1st and 2nd in their class. They are in the same class. They've got a slightly narrower rear wing. Originally the cars would have had a wider front wing, but that was outlawed as well, and Maserati desperately trying to get the car into more championships around the world.
I honestly thought that having pulled in front of that little MC12 battle with his Vodafone livery red and white car, that Kriton Lendudis would pull away, but the Greek is still in car number 11, has still got Joe Macari in the Red Bull livery Maserati in the background, car 46 in the background of the shot. It looks like we might have a change of place. The DBA of Emil Breitmeier, looks like Peter Wolf in the yellow Lotus is going to pick him off.
Goes around the outside fairly easily there in that, the number 24 dropping down a position then, and
I simply think Emil Breitmeier is a very, very quick and capable driver. I think maybe all isn't right, or he's just being cautious. This is his first time racing. As he said, at Barcelona there were problems, or maybe he's just thinking this doesn't handle like GT40. I was racing all around France last week, but I would put the balance on the fact that I've seen Emil drive so many cars and drives them beautifully that he's just feeling his way in this one. But Peter Wolf knows that yellow Lola very, very well indeed. Now he's getting on the tail of Joe Macari, and that's going to help Kriton Lendudis just maybe pull away a little bit. But look, on the second part of Pouon, the handling you get from a prototype versus a GT was enormous. But you know what, well, Joe Macari did a very, very good job of staying legally in the middle of the circuit there.
Well, and also you're talking about a car that's 675 kilos against one that's probably 12.5, 1,300 kilos. So you're pretty much talking about a car, albeit with a smaller engine, turbocharged, maybe doesn't have the outright torque, but it has plenty of power from that little 2-litre AER engine, but it's got half the weight, and half the weight is good not just in top speed and how much power you need to push you through the air. It's that dynamic ability that Bruce was talking about, where you can move the car around, and of course that car is exploiting downforce as well, the yellow car. There's the first of the pit stops. Pit lane window has just opened.
We've already got someone in, which is George Gagnon in the Lindsay, but I didn't notice if that was... Did he just get in, or was he already in for a non-pit stoppy?
Yeah, I think you might be right, actually, because he's been in for a lap. Yeah. Bright red and white Vodafone number 11 coming down the pit lane. By the way, just some numbers to throw at you. It's a very pleasant 28 Celsius in the air. However, for the tyres and the air intakes, how about 46 Celsius on the track? Yeah, 46 Celsius on the track. Tyre engineers start to get interested around about this, getting up towards 50 Celsius. Meantime, the battle goes on at Le Combe. Nice bit of racing room given there by the Creation liveried car. That's the number 24, Emil Breitmeier, the DB03S. As we were saying, that was a Zytec basically underneath an 04S, and coming from that Reynard category. I've got a feeling, I was talking to Sam Hignett the other day, it's Silverstone Sam Hignett from Jota, and Sam lent or gave some bodywork that they had up on their wall of champions, so that somebody could make a mould of that, because they of course started off with Zytec. Jota Racing, who've won here in the World Endurance Championship with Porsche, their previous manufacturer. Now Cadillac Hertz team Jota. So right in the middle of the pit stops now, and there's no rush going on here, Bruce, because it's not about who's got the fastest pit crew here. It's about making sure everything's done, if there is anything to be done, that it's done safely and securely.
It's just totally sensible. You don't need as many people in your pit crew if you're not having to do a super quick pit stop. It's generous time across the meeting, but it's a safety element. You know, it just makes sense. However, Olivier Gallon continues, but he's just lost so much time relative to our race leader, Alfie Briggs, 13 seconds down. So the pace early on, I'm beginning to suggest that maybe Olivier Gallon consumed his tyres a little bit more, trying to keep up with the better handling Zytec, and is now paying the price. But his best lap. The difference between their best lap is 2.5 seconds. No wonder there's such an advantage. What I also love is when you look at cars like this Marcus Mantara, of course it will say Core Oyster on the roof, but you look on the other side, see who else raced it in period? Callum Lockie, who'll be here this weekend racing a Morgan SLR in the 60s in Enduro element. Such a difference.
Little bit of trivia for Callum. He won a national championship last year in the UK on 4 and on 2 wheels. And I can't find in a single racing series where anybody has done that before. A single racing season. But a national level championship on both 2 and 4 wheels for Mr. L.
Well, he has launched himself into the pond of 2 wheels and is lapping it up. And I think for everybody concerned, it means he might have fewer of these motorbikes in the house, which could be a good thing. I don't know. See what Melindy thinks.
Hello to Arnage Rob. He says, I've not mowed the lawn for the past 3 weeks because I went to the Spa 6 hours, then I watched the Nürburgring 24 last week, and then work. So it was pretty hard work today, and I've just collapsed with a cuppa. Oh, blow me if Spark Classic isn't on. So just the tonic. Which reminds me, I've got some flavoured gin that I need to drink. Oh yes, Rob, very well done. And hello to Dal, says, if you're indoors escaping from the hot sun, well worthwhile sitting down as I've done and putting YouTube on and watching some glorious Spa Classic action.
Right, here's what we always call in the business Pilbeam pit stop action. The 2 red cars coming in the front of that queue. The driver from one car has to hop out and get in the other, and vice versa. Hopefully it's synchronicity. Yeah, they're only parked 10 metres apart, so that should be fine. But you wouldn't want Nell Stark's brought his Lola MG and tucked it in behind them, which seems
they're
remarkable.
Not changing.
And maybe they are, maybe they're not. But they have in previous races.
They aren't changing.
No,
they would have been out by
I'm not getting out. I'm not getting out.
No.
Maybe they hedge their bets, but in terms of natural pace, you would expect them, Pierre Bruno, to lose out a little bit. He's very experienced, but I don't know why everyone's stacked in there. Right, the Lotus has come in. Remember that car started 6th, that bright yellow Lotus for Loris Hazeman. So he'll hand over to Father Mike. That's in the background of the shot, though.
And the Chamberlain Synergy 39 car had problems. They had the engine cover off and were... I don't know whether it stopped or whether they couldn't get it restarted or whatever, but that they were spraying some what looked to be easy start on the engine to get it going. The Lotus, has come to a halt, almost getting its Goodyear branded tyres in exactly the same place either side, which would have been very impressive. The Hot Wheels Lola in bright green. That was a colour that you could get your road car in, and without any hint of irony at all back in the day, it was called Chernobyl Green. Believe it or not, that was what it said on the colour sheet.
And I'd have to say it's very much gained in popularity as of last weekend in the Nürburgring 24 Hours, because that was the green hue on the Dacia logo.
It was indeed.
49,000 million hits. As much popularity almost as Max Verstappen making his appearance there. But it's been a perennial favourite, but a whole new audience has got to see a car that doesn't like it shouldn't. No, it is.
Can you believe that the MG has still got the blanking over the nose, over the cooling on the nose of that car? Here's the Pierre Martinet sponsored number 996, which is indeed a Type 996 Porsche. Twin turbo,
and
flat
as no driver change appears to be effective, we have to presume that Chris Harris of road car fame in its many forms will not be racing this weekend. Looks like Malka Paltola is doing the lot here. So anyhow, wonderful, warm, late spring afternoon. Feels like high summer, looks like high summer. And what a mix of cars. In from the lead of the race by dint of Alfie Briggs having pulled out 13 seconds on him, and then maybe 16 by the time the pit stops. Olivier Gallon is going to do his best, but he nearly did the pit wall.
Yeah, it's under 2 minutes now to pit window closing, so it has to be this lap. Even had they gone straight through, doing their best is a 2:16. I don't think they would have got another one in. 2:16.1 for that car, as through goes the Lotus back down towards Eau Rouge, staying well clear of the cars. Loris Hazeman staying behind the wheel of that Elise.
No, I'm fairly confident there was a driver change, so I expect Father Mike to have got on board. Of course, Mike was racing that in period in the late 1990s. I think 1997 was the debut season for that car. It is a 1997 vintage car, and I remembered seeing it out on the FIA Championship that year, but also Le Mans. It never got the just rewards at Le Mans, but right now it's just lovely seeing these cars back on the track. And hopefully it wasn't too much of a delay for the number 39 Peter Wolf driven Lola BO540. BO5 means 2005. There you go. You don't have to be a genius on that one. And the 40 nomenclatures for LMP2 from Lola. Slightly convoluted numbering system, but there was a pattern to it. Certainly not as convoluted as Ferrari Formula 1 chassis numbers. They seem to have a different version every couple of years, which for those of us who tend to be of the historian nature, it's a little bit maddening.
Yes, we were trying to work that out a couple of weekends ago, weren't we? Back to the good old days when 512 in Ferrari meant 5 litre 12 cylinder. The Lindsay looks to be going slow, not just letting the leader through.
Well, I think the Lindsay, it's still listed as having Georges Gagnard at the wheel, but it was, I call him Guillaume Gagnard, but it should be Jean-Francois Besson in the second part of the race, or maybe George is just going, you know what, it's had a bit of a problem, it's still very new, I just need to assess the issue.
So this is the battle for the lead, because Alfie Briggs went in one lap before the Panos. The Panos is still on the pit lane. Yes, it is.
Just remember, before they came in, I think the last time I checked, the gap between first and second between Alfie Briggs in the Zytek and Olivier Gallon in the Panos was somewhere around 16 seconds. But it's a very long exit to the pit lane here, and you have to go the whole way down to rejoin at Eau Rouge. So
he's just on the endurance part of the pit lane now in the Panos. So Alfie, I think, has lost the lead here to that, or has lost some ground, should I say, to the Panos. Yeah, Panos already halfway down the Camel Straight, and the limbs up the Camel Straight, and the Lindsay has ground to a halt on the outside of Blanchimont.
Is that Blanchimont? It's downhill at Pouhon, I think. It's halfway between first and second Pouhon.
You are right.
But again, when you're shown a gravel trap and just an expanse of tarmac, it could be anywhere. But importantly, he's off. But not importantly, he's off. He's far from the side of the circuit. But I would want that car moved.
Yellow flag's been covering that at the moment. So Panos, Olivier Gallon in the lead. 10 laps having been completed. But more importantly, 13.5 minutes to go. So the chase is on. And where's Mike Newton? Has he got out as well? Yes, he has. So Mike Newton has jumped up the order. Whereas Hazemans is right with him. I think Mike is... So the lead is...
Mike is right in front of Alfie Briggs.
Correct.
Him coming out of, into Speaker's corner. But the yellow flag will not help the chaser, which is Alfie Briggs. He cannot overtake. So he's losing some of the advantage he can claw back.
Well, and remember, he had a longer pit stop. He was telling Vincent that at the beginning. This is the part of the balance of performance, if you will, but for once we're not balancing the cars. Such a controversial thing to do, but we are actually balancing the drivers. Aston versus Maserati, that has been going on for lap after lap now down in Brussels, and it is the Vitaphone car and the DPR9 that are having the scrap. Tell you what, that Aston looks like it can pick any line it wants through the corners there, Bruce.
It absolutely does. And in fact, just before we did the TV set in the studio, talking to various Carl Tilley and Chris Ward, and I love it when you get drivers just who race different categories going, what's it like, what's this, what that. You're here with the GT3s. They go, the Aston's really easy to drive in GT3. The Porsche is much, much harder, the cars than the vintage.
Yeah.
And you look from the outside, and of course they're balanced, so their lap time should be the same, not always the same at all points around the circuit, but their manufacturer lap time should be equalised. But some are easier to drive, and when you move to a later iteration of the Mercedes AMG, for example, they thought, right, the second generation must be kinder to the gentleman driver to bring them on. If you have something that turns on the head of a pin, that's not any good for an AM driver. So there are differences between the manufacturers for sure.
New fastest lap of his race, and for the 1B class for Alfie Briggs at 13.752, but that is by far the quickest car on the track at the moment as we wait for Olivier Gallant to get back up to pace in the LMP1 Panos Roadster S. This enthralling battle between two very different philosophies of racing car, and the Aston Martin, well, the Empire striking back there down the inside into La Source and retakes the position ahead of that number 2.
Yeah, it was a really good move through
Gregor.
through the bus stop from Gregor. He went in tight and came out wide, and that gave him momentum onto the start-finish straight. But he was absolutely intent. And Alexander Wittbecker, I think, was sort of caught a little bit napping. He thought, I've got the middle of this corner covered off, but he hadn't worked out that corner exit speed was key. And unfortunately, one of the cars is parked up in the garage. That's Xavier Micheron, the Courage. That's one of the 4 LMP1 class cars, but it started way down the order in about 13th position. And during the race, it was fighting with LMP2 cars, and that's not the sort of environment you expect it to be in. So clearly some problems.
Look how low that rear wing was mounted, way out behind and so low down. I loved that era. Hugely reliable and powerful Nissan based V8. So the 996 Porsche's just gone over the top. The number 996 Porsche's just gone over the top of Radion, Marcus Baltala driving that. The low rumble of Olivier Gallon, and I read at the last timing point that was 21 seconds, that gap between the Peugeots and the Lotus Elise. So Alfie Briggs a further 7.5 behind that, so that is the sharp end of half a minute. But of course he did have that extra 20 odd seconds penalty. So just under 10 minutes to go down on the circuit with the ERL1s, the Endurance Racing Legend 1 category. This is their first of 2 races over the weekend. Perfect weather conditions. And a Paynos down there, coming down the hill. Let's break away from the action for a moment.
In the pits with Xavier Micheron, and this car, this Courage, is unfortunately the only retirement. Xavier, on va même la faire en français. Malheureusement, le seul abandon de la course pour l'instant. Il y a eu quoi?
En fait, j'ai perdu l'embrayage. Il y a un émetteur hydraulique qui a lâché, et donc j'ai pas pu redémarrer là.
Alors vous êtes un spécialiste, Xavier, de ces prototypes des temps modernes, hein, on peut le dire, par rapport à d'autres catégories ici. C'est comment sur Spa-Francorchamps? C'est idéal, on imagine.
Ah, c'est fabuleux, hein. Là, en plus, bon, on est avec une voiture que l'on découvre, puisqu'elle a été restaurée. C'est la première course dans laquelle on l'engage. Et c'est une voiture un peu plus ancienne que celle avec laquelle je roulais précédemment, puisque là, c'est une Courage du Mans 99 qui a terminé 6e. Et la voiture est fabuleuse. On a dû faire évidemment des réglages pour trouver de la vitesse. Et là, je commençais vraiment à avoir de la vitesse, que j'ai pas l'habitude de partir de si loin. Mais là, on commence à prendre la voiture. Et franchement, à Spa, c'est fabuleux, hein, parce que là, pour le coup, elle a beaucoup de... Clairement, elle passe très très fort. Hein, elle a une très très bonne vitesse de pointe. Donc, c'est fabuleux.
Donc, on va voir prochainement avec cette auto, on imagine, Xavier?
Oui, en fait, elle est engagée au Mans Classique, dans le plateau 8. Donc un plateau pour les protos de 94 à 99, ça sera une des voitures les plus modernes du plateau. Et je serai avec Olivier qui sera avec la Panose. Et puis on va essayer de s'amuser.
And it's a very good news. This Courage will be back at Le Mans.
Thank you very much, Vincent. That was Xavier Micheron, who drives cars, prepares them and sells them. This car, as he said, finished 6th. Look at the names on the side. Alex Caffey, Andrea Montermini and Mimo Chattarella. When we looked at the cars, we thought, what happened to Mimo? He was there, he had his little crack on the edge of Formula 1, but again, you can't remember everything, but great to have. And also Xavier saying how much he enjoyed racing the open-topped prototypes as well. And it is a factor. You love them, John. You talked about having the head up, but actually when we got to the circuit on Thursday, wasn't it? I think we were talking to Jan Magnussen, he was saying, look, I've been driving a little Lola, he's driving later a little 2-litre sports car. Look, bits of rubber coming up, and it's smashed the nail on one of his thumbs, and the stuff that comes into the cockpit is a problem. I think probably more so with those 1970s Lolas than the later ones that had more aero that would shift,
pushing stuff over the top.
A lot more stuff.
I was very fortunate to see the very last LMP2 open top race. Johnny Palmer and I called that at Estoril, and whilst they were sitting in Parc Fermé afterwards, we wandered down just to take it in, as it was literally the sun setting on that form of of motor racing. But wait, because they're all coming back. The racing and historic racing in the States with HSR, which is now part of IMSA, of course, and John Doonan, who's the president of IMSA, taking a particular interest in the HSR side of things. And indeed, there's a connection between Peter Auto and the HSR running classes in the Daytona 24 Hours Classic later in the year. And we've got some NASCAR coming over to the Le Mans Classic this year, first weekend in July. Yeah, HSR returning the compliment.
Yeah, it's in the one in middle of November, 10th to 15th of November. Correct. At the Daytona Classic. It's the 60s Endurance. We'll have racing them here. For a lot of those people, that is something very special. They're accustomed to racing in Europe, but the chance to go en masse over to a circuit like Daytona, too good to be missed. One person who's tumbled down the order after that sensational start is still listed as Loris Hazemans, but I did see a driver change, so I'm sure it's Mike. He brought the Lotus Elise into the pits about a minute and a half ago, and it appears also another car in the pits is Corroiser with his Marcos. Remember that Mantara, very bright, but unfortunately not very loud at the moment because it's being pushed back into its pit garage. But the battle for the Maserati MC12s, Creton Lendudis, car number 11, that's the red and white one, and then in behind, as ever, Joe Macari in the number 46. Red ahead of blue, and they're fighting over fifth position. They're also fighting over the top position in GT1. Best of the rest is Gregor Fiskin. We saw he made that great overtaking manoeuvre a short while ago on the third of the Maserati, so he's third in class.
It's Liam Hazemans that took over.
Okay, so Loris to Liam, so L to L.
Yeah, that didn't help, did it?
No, they should have thought about that when they got to the font.
Yeah. Also got a pit stop infringement, and I think it is for that car. I think it is for the 43 car. 27 seconds under investigation. Actually there's two I've seen now. So there's a 27 seconds and under investigation. I think there might have been a tad late making that pit stop. I'll update you for that at the moment.
Yeah, the Lotus wasn't, because it came in as all those midfield runners we saw on the LMP2 cars. So it might have been a bit short rather than a bit. But anyhow, the Marcos sitting in the garage, engine problem. Torch looking under that mighty unit under the hood. We've got 3.5 minutes left in this race, and here's the margin. 17 seconds. 10 seconds gained in the last handful of laps by the chasing Alfie Briggs.
The reason I thought they were late, Bruce, is they've been through the pit lane twice.
No, that's what I said. They came back into the pits with whatever the problem was.
Yeah.
So
that was when they changed drivers.
No, they changed drivers the first time.
No, 29 minutes passed. So they changed it the second. So
I saw a driver change.
Maybe that's when it's just flicked over.
It's flicked. No, I definitely saw one driver out, and I just saw a darker helmet driver going in. So it looks like the best battle of the race is going to be. You might think, looking at the screen, it's between the two Maseratis for GT1 honours in 5th place and 6th place, between Creton Lendudis in red and Joe Macari in blue. However, Alfie Briggs, at this point, with 2.5 minutes remaining in a few seconds, is clawing down the lead. It's come from 27 seconds down to 15 seconds. The clock is not going to be his friend. He's going to run out of time to hunt down from Olivier Gallon, but his sheer pace in that car, his best lap is 3 seconds faster than the race-leading Panos of Gallon.
And whilst the two Maseratis are battling coming to the pit stop, Joe Macari tries to look at the inside, kind of had position, but just couldn't roll off the brake in time. We will see that Lotus back in again, Bruce, because it's been black flagged and they're refueling in the race. So they already had a 43-second penalty, and now they've been pinged again.
Well, there you go. And not long left, just under 2 minutes. The gap is now under 15 seconds. But Vincent is in the pit lane, and he's next to an interview with the inimitable Corroiser, driver of the Marcos.
Unfortunately, it's a retirement for this car, this wonderful Marcos Mantara LM600. This guy is the same guy for so many years. Corroiser, what was the problem, Cor?
We have a power steering leak, so the power steering was locking up, so I saw a little smoke coming out of the front end, so I said I better stop because it really started to turn heavy. And that's too dangerous with this car.
Cor, I remember I was 25 years old and I came here in Spa commentating my first races, and you were here with this car in the Bell Car Championship at the time. Is it the same car?
It's absolutely the same car. This car is with me for 27 years now. We built the car ourselves. It always was in my garage, and I'm still racing it.
And it's still the same driver?
Exactly.
So young, absolutely. Mr. Cor Heuser.
That is a phenomenal story. Brilliant. The same car and the same driver combination.
And just the same enthusiasm from Cor. Tip-top driver. And, yeah, you might have said he could have moved on to other things, but he just absolutely loved this Marcos. He likes cars with big grunts. And it just suits him and his character down to the ground. Shame it hasn't got through to the end. The end of the race, however, is nearly upon us. This is the last lap. The gap has come down to 10 seconds. Alfie Briggs, well, his best lap is 3 seconds faster than the race leader, Olivier Galland, so he's not going to be able to claw that back, but it's been a massive charge from Alfie Briggs. Why is he in second if he's in the fastest car in the race? Because he had to serve a longer pit stop. In the background of the shot, that isn't his red car. I think that was Mark Drain, who's a lap down in his Courage. Yeah, but behind, with the headlights on, white with the blue flashes, Alfie Briggs is chasing. The margin's going to come down below 10 seconds. It might get down to 6.5 seconds. It might be whatever. It's futile, but it's racing. You've got to go for it.
He took 6.5 seconds out of the lead last time around, as you were saying, and he's absolutely flying. Now, all there needs to be is a bit of traffic, really, to slow the leader down.
But
bad news for...
But alas, there isn't.
I was just about to say, bad news for the chaser. There's nobody. Leader coming down into Pouon, and the next traffic is coming out of Curve Paul Frere.
Yeah, he shouldn't even catch that as fast as he is before he gets to the end of the lap. In fact, only one other car is in front of him, apart from the number 2. That sounds a backward sentence, doesn't it? Alexander Rittweger is the driver he may catch, but I don't think he will. But right now, going to the lowest point on the circuit, the chasing white and blue Zytek, Alfie Briggs, cut the gap. It's under 9 seconds. He's going to get it down to maybe 6 seconds. But the driver on screen, car number 1, black, orange and silver, engine up front, Olivier Galland, tall driver sticking out the top. He is surely heading for victory, but he's been made to really work for it. But the longer pit stop for Alfie Briggs, while Zytek driving pole sitter, well, that's cost him big time. And also being delayed by the Lotus at the start of the race when it went up from 6th and got between him and Olivier Galland. Took him a while.
6 seconds. You were spot on, Bruce. It's come down to 6 seconds.
We're not there yet.
Took 2.5 seconds in the first sector, 2 seconds in the second sector, but the Paynos, the front engine car with the normally aspirated American V8, pushed way back in that long nose. Almost looks like a big aircraft carrier, doesn't it? You could land helicopters on that.
Well,
through.
Well, the gap will be about 4 seconds. 4.1 seconds by the end of the race. What a chase from Alfie Briggs, but he knew he had the longer pit stop, but really what hurt him, still waiting for the third place car to come through. It should be Mike Newton in that MG EX24, the LMP2 runner, but being stuck behind the Lotus in the first lap of the race really cost him.
Crichton Lendudis and Joe Macari still having their battle as well, and that is for a class win, let's not forget, in GT1. That's in 5th and 6th behind Emil Breitmeier in the DBA, the Den Blas Arvis.
Yeah, which suddenly got its form in the second half of the race and has caught right back up with Mike Newton. Mike may not finish in third, but the LMP2 car does just do that. Remember, the metallic blue Emil DBA fell to about 8th place in the race and seemed out of sorts, but the second half really hooked it up.
And here are the two battling. Oh, and it appears that Joe has dropped back just a little bit. He was only 0.2 of a second away across the line, and he's under pressure for an overall position from Peter Wolf in the bright yellow Lola. That's not a class position, but Joe holds on to it anyway. So Maserati's first and second in GT1B, and in fact in third in that class is the Aston Martin. Gregor Fiskin there, he goes across the line, the V12 screaming along to itself. Then it'll be Liam Hazeman's. That car did not come in for the black flag. They might be being invited to go and see the clerk of the course there, because that car was black flagged a lap or two ago. Normally, if you've got a penalty to serve, it's 3 times past the starter stand, but for a black flag you have to come in at the next possible opportunity. So that will be being looked at there. If there is a meeting, there'll be no coffee and biscuits, I'm sure.
No, indeed. Also, they got penalised for an issue in qualifying as well. So,
and by the way, you were spot on. That 27 seconds was a short pit stop. when they did it. You were
well, they came in behind the others and then just seemed to get going before. And to my simple mind, that seemed to equate undercutting the others. However, you can never really judge from the outside because you have to assess the ranks of the drivers, and that also dictates the length of those pit stops. And also for Peter Wolf in that yellow Lola, we sensed there was a problem. The engine cover was up, so I thought that could have settled it. But right now, Olivier Galland, he was all smiles on the grid. He knew he had a battle ahead of him to try and keep the Panos at the front, or get the Panos to the front. He managed that on the opening lap of the race. Alfie Briggs in the Zytek that started from pole, he said that will have far more handling than my car. It's lighter than my car. But he got a bad start. He got passed by the GT1 Lotus, got delayed, and in the end of the race, I sensed that was the difference between victory for Alfie Briggs and not.
Ian McCarthy, always intensely sensible, says, "Good afternoon, lads. Really enjoying the historic weekends that you guys cover. Something comforting about how relatively quickly we get to see retired categories racing again. I've really missed the open top prototypes at Le Mans, particularly LMP2. Far be it from me to gainsay you, Ian, and I agree with everything you say, but I don't think there's a car in this race that is under 20 years old. So relatively recently is, relatively. It is a relative term. You're spot on.
Look, it nearly stretches to 30 years, John. Let's be generous. The Lotus from 1997.
Yeah.
So we're nearly there, but you're spot on as always, Ian. And it's just lovely to see it. Or maybe just as you get older, the years go by a little faster. Who knows? But certainly the way that, like GT3 becoming a historic category, this being a historic category, but it's great. And also these cars are still simple enough to be run sensibly, which is the key. Some of the ones for the years after that may be a little bit more of a problem in the future.
Yeah, that's very